Since we have already covered nouns, let's begin to look at the use of pronouns and the syntax in which they are found. Now, pronouns are words that substitute for nouns in a context where a name or a thing or a place has already been mentioned. The next time it comes up in a narrative, a pronoun can be substituted. Some examples would be, she walked down the street. She is the pronoun. Tom gave flowers to her. The teacher taught them to read. Or our house is painted purple. In each case, one would assume that there's something in the context that tells you who the antecedent is for each of these pronouns. Pronouns can be the subject of a verb, an object of a verb, an indirect object, or they can express possession. In English, pronouns are separate words, but in Hebrew, while some are separate, others appear as a suffix on a word, often a verb, preposition, or noun, or sometimes some other particles as well. Here's a chart. You will also find this in Walker Jones, a chart of the various independent personal pronouns. These are the ones that occur as separate words. That's what it means by independent here. Third masculine singular is who, third feminine singular he, etc. And these occur as usually as a subject. They are not used as, say, to indicate the possessive. They are not indicated. They are not used to indicate the object, but rather the subject. Most of the time, they are used in what is called a verbless clause. This is a clause in which instead of a verb, you have an independent pronoun plus some other noun of some kind, and one in English needs to add the verb to be. Independent personal pronouns can also be used for emphasis. For example, they may occur at the beginning of a sentence to call attention to the fact of who is actually being talked about in what follows. Sometimes they are used when there's sort of a change in the speaker or the actor within a narrative. Here are some examples of the independent pronoun used in verbless clauses. And these are tricky, so you need to kind of pay attention to these. We will be dealing with them again later. But it can be sometimes a little tricky to figure out if something is a verbless clause. Here are some examples. The first one, Ani Adonai. I am Adonai, I am Yahweh. You'll notice that there's just the two words side by side, I and the word for God. And the only way to connect them or turn them into a clause or sentence is to add the verb to be. Let's look at the next one, Navi Hu. He is a prophet. Now notice that unlike English, here the word order in Hebrew doesn't make any difference. You can have hu navi or navi hu. It means exactly the same thing. He is a prophet. At ha'isha, you are the woman. Again, in the fourth example here, the pronoun comes second. You are righteous. The word order does not really matter. You could also have ata tzadik. And the last example, meharan anachnu. We are from Haran. And again, you are supplying the verb to be in order to turn it into a clause in English. Here are a couple of examples where the independent pronoun is used as the subject of a following verb. In this case, you have independent pronoun, verb, and then you have a prepositional phrase with a suffix. Now, strictly speaking, this verb does not need a separate word as a subject because the subject is included in the verb. So you could have a yimloch taktai, okay? But in this case, it is perhaps for emphasis that the pronoun is used. So v'hu yimloch tachtai, and he will be king after me. The emphasis might be, and he will be king after me. So that might be the function that this is playing. Another example here is you have the independent pronoun for I, and the verb here, ani echrot itacha berit. I will cut with you or make with you a covenant. And again, strictly speaking, the subject is already in the verb, but the ani is used in addition, again, perhaps for emphasis. Perhaps there's been a change of speaker. One would have to look at the larger context. Now, pronoun suffixes, or sometimes they're called pronominal suffixes, are not independent. They're not written as independent words. Rather, they come on the end of whatever word they go with. These can be used as an indirect object, for example, perhaps on a preposition. They can be used as a direct object. For example, they can be attached to the end of a verb or with a definite direct object marker, something we'll learn about later. And they can be attached to, for example, a noun to indicate possession, but they always occur at the end of a word and are called suffixes. There is a chart in Walker-Jones of all of the variations of all the person, number, genders that you will find attached. You don't really need to memorize these because, of course, the Bible software will show you, whether or not something is a suffix, and it will parse it for you. Some of these occur on singulars, some of them occur on plurals, some of them are only used with verbs, etc., etc. But this gives you an idea that there are a number of these pronominal suffixes that can be attached to words that are pronouns. They take the place of him or his or her or their or them, etc. Here are just some examples of various other particles or words to which these pronominal suffixes are attached. So we have here the preposition lamed, and then the suffix, the third masculine singular suffix. And so this would be translated to or for him. Here's another example of a preposition plus a pronominal suffix. In this case, first common singular. So you have the preposition all plus the first common singular. And this would be translated something like upon me. Here's an example with the definite direct object. Again, we'll talk more about that later. But here, the pronoun is acting like a direct object. That's what that DDO is referring to. So otcha. Okay. Here it is attached directly to a verb. Kibad tam, you honored them. Or in this case, to an imperative verb, shalacheni, send me. You have the verb and then this hirik yod at the end, or in this case, the nun hirik yod, because that's a form that is added to verbs, indicates the pronoun. So send me. On nouns, for example, and also on participles, the suffix indicates a possessive. So her horse, noun plus pronominal suffix. Or devarchen, your word. Again, the possessive. Going back to our examples where we saw the independent pronoun being used as the subject, I just wanted to point out that in the same clause, you also have the use of a pronominal suffix plus a preposition. So after me, and here the preposition with plus the suffix, so with you. So the functions of the suffixed pronouns are basically that with a participle, it is a possessive, just as it is with a noun. With a preposition, it's the object of the preposition. The marker of the direct object, definite direct object, it's an object pronoun. With a finite verb, that includes what you will learn later as the perfect, imperfect, imperative, etc. It acts as a direct object. And we're going to be learning about something called the infinitive construct, in which it can be a variety of things, possessive, direct object, subject, etc. Don't worry too much about some of these things that we haven't been introduced to. We'll be coming back to them in future. Just for the moment, just make a note. Now I just wanted to show you in accordance what you can expect to see. So here we have an example of a suffix, and if you hover over this word here, this tells you that the lamed is a particle, it's a preposition, the preposition to or for. And then if you just hover over here, it tells you that it's the suffix first common plural. So that's what it will look like in accordance when you are trying to find out what the various parts of a word are.